Now, I want you to approach this with a ferocious curiosity and a sense of adventure, like you're playing the most interesting game of hide and go seek ever. And I want you to bring the energy of that to this process, as if your very best friend is hiding, and the thrill of it and excitement of finding them completely overrides any fears or doubts that will inevitably bubble up during this process. Because in reality, it is your best friend that's on the other side of this process. That's you. We're just making room for that version of yourself to be able to take up space by removing some of the stuff that isn't working for you anymore, which is the idea of spring cleaning. Welcome to season 1, episode 11. Before we get started, I wanted to make sure that you knew that I had made you a printable download of the 3-question strategy that you can get by following the link in the show notes. And don't forget to check out our new blog. You can access the blog at www.thereframe.net. Welcome to The Reframe, from the couch to the conversation, where we dive deep into subjects that reduce stress and anxiety to create more space for you to be able to do the things that you love and enjoy. I'm your host, Rebecca Molman, trauma therapist turned coach. And today we're going to be talking about spring cleaning and really clearing out the cobwebs of our heads, hearts, and homes. And we're also going to have an emphasis on this podcast with decluttering and simplifying not just your space, but looking at time, relationships, and finances. Spring cleaning is more than just cleaning out the closets. It is also about cleaning out the cobwebs of our heads and our hearts. It's decluttering our entire energy field from those things that are simply ready to move on, and also having the courage to allow that process to happen. It's a practice of letting go and making space for that spring energy to flow in and reorganize you. To capitalize on this influx of new beginnings and spring energy, the work of cleaning out the cobwebs is absolutely paramount. So let's unpack spring cleaning and doing the prep work for intentionally designing the life that you desire. We're going to cover one, a practical 3-question strategy to simplify and reduce friction around this process for you. Two, we're going to take a closer look to objects, things, and wearables, people and relationships, time, and finance. And then 3, we're going to look at activating your courage by decluttering your why. Now, I want you to approach this with a ferocious curiosity and a sense of adventure, like you're playing the most interesting game of hide and go seek ever. And I want you to bring the energy of that to this process, as if your very best friend is hiding, and the thrill of it and excitement of finding them completely overrides any fears or doubts that will inevitably bubble up during this process. Because in reality, it is your best friend that's on the other side of this process. That's you. We're just making room for that version of yourself to be able to take up space by removing some of the stuff that isn't working for you anymore, which is the idea of spring cleaning. So let's start with this 3-question strategy first. And I can't remember now where I first heard about this, but I've used it for years and it hasn't failed me yet. We're going to apply the same process to many different areas of your life, but it's the same core 3 questions. Now, I want you to imagine that you go into your closet and you pick out a item of clothing, or you walk into the kitchen and you look at the juicer that you may or may not have used in the last 6 months sitting on the counter. And I want you to ask the following 3 questions. First question is, how does it make me feel? Does it lift you up? Does it excite you? Does it bring you vitality and life or energy to you? Or does it seem heavy and cumbersome and like a weight? You can even go and pick it up when you think about using that item. Notice how your very initial feeling is in relationship to the item, and just take note of that. The second question is, Do I need this? And is it in the right place? So, I mean, literally, do I need this, guys? So, if you have not opened that box or touched that thing for the last year, there is a really, really good chance that it probably needs to go. And if it hasn't been touched or used in 6 months, same thing. Really evaluate, is that absolutely necessary to have in your space? Because it does take up energy. Now, that juicer does have a very important job. Say you use that juicer once a year, maybe every spring, to do a juice detox. Well, you don't want to go buy a new juicer every year. So you find a new home for it so it's not taking up valuable real estate in your day to day space. So the second question was, do I actually need this? And is it in the right space? So the third question that I want you to ask yourself is, does this align with my values, goals, and service? If it isn't working for you, it is going to be working against you, or at least weighing you down unnecessarily. Now, the strategy is deceivingly simple, yet incredibly potent. It'll immediately cut through any BS. So let's start to apply this process to different areas of your life. The most obvious areas of life to evaluate is objects, things, and wearables. This is the stuff that we find on our shelves, in our closets, in our drawers, moving item by item and critically evaluating how it makes you feel. Do you need it? And if so, is it in the right place? And does it align with your values, goals, and service? Pro tip number one, I want you to weigh that first initial gut response a little heavier than the response that follows, which comes from your logical, analytical, excuse making part of your mind. In this area, it is helpful to remember that the goal is to simplify your space. Where can you declutter? And is there anywhere that needs a little bit more organization? This applies to the kitchen, to bedrooms, as much as it applies to your office, garage, attic, possibly basement. Physical clutter holds stagnant energy that will clog the natural flow or energy in your house. How you keep your space is often a direct reflection of your mind. I'll often give people that struggle with scattered and generally disorganized thinking this project for homework. As they declutter their space and they put items in place to maintain a more organized and streamlined environment, they usually find that their thoughts are less scattered and disorganized as well. Now, time. Time has a way of showing us what really matters. Where we spend our time is a good gauge to show us where our values are really authentically weighted, pointing us to the direction of beliefs that are not actually aligned with our desires and values, leaving self sabotage to riddle itself throughout our days. Let me explain. If you were to track exactly where you spend your time for a full week, including day and night, you would actually find some surprising misalignments with what you think your values are and where you actually spend the currency of your time. The cool thing is that we can reverse engineer this process. So, say you have tracked your entire week down to 15-minute increments, even, and you notice that you're spending way more time than you thought on tasks that lack intention, direction, or purpose. In fact, they're taking away from family time, for example, that you genuinely value, but you're not engaging in. You might find that when you look a little bit deeper, that there is some fear around family time, possibly, that isn't being realized. And it is literally sabotaging the quality time that is really important to you. This can sound like it was easy to love my kids when they were little, but now that they're getting older, I'm afraid that they will grow older and forget about me. So identify the fear and limiting belief. If I love too much, then it will hurt more when I'm all alone. And this is likely an irrational fear at play and driving a wedge between the desire to deeply connect with the kiddos and fear of being alone and in pain. See how we're going from one to the other and how it can show up as sabotage in the desire to spend more time with family? Let's take another example. I can't make Tommy's swim meet because I have to work late again. So the limiting belief could possibly be work has to be a sacrifice. This is actually a very common one in a lot of my clients. This person likely doesn't consciously think these exact words of work has to be a sacrifice, but it is driving his or her actions and is clearly not in alignment with his or her core values. The last example I'm going to give you is I can't call my son because it has been too long already. I wouldn't even know what to say. And you can probably find the basic fear underlining this of he is going to reject me. Once you see the fears and the limiting beliefs that are sabotaging your core values, then you 100% can do something about it. Where are you putting your time? Are there any discrepancies or misalignments with your core values? Can you identify any fears or limiting beliefs taking you off course from these core values? What can you do to correct course? It is important to look at the commitments that you have made and apply the 3 question process. As life changes, it is important to evaluate where we spend our time and energy because it's easy to continue things that have become a habit or a pattern from a place of mindless or even sometimes resentful obligation. This will certainly contribute to unneeded stress, overwhelm, and drain. People and relationships. This is a really tough one, and I think it's a really tough one for all of us. But you still will apply this 3 question process. Because there are emotional attachments to people and relationships, it does make it a little bit more sticky and nuanced and challenging. Some reasons that make this harder for people is because we are afraid of losing those that we love or that have a significant place in our lives, even if the relationship causes us excess stress, heartache, and dysfunction. The closer the person is to us, the deeper the attachments will be and the more challenging this process can be. As you apply spring cleaning to people and relationships, it's very important to remember a couple things. 1, try not to make decisions from an emotionally overwhelmed place. 2, have grace and patience with yourself during this process. 3, it likely doesn't have to be figured out right now. Give yourself some time. 4, try a pro and con list if you start to get stuck. And 5, watch out for the all or nothing, also known as black and white thinking. It may be that you just need to readjust your boundaries around this person or relationship to completely shift the dynamic. You might want to consult a trusted friend, a coach, or even a therapist to untangle this one with you. But the goal is the same here, to evaluate if this person or relationship is infusing growth, meaning, and vitality into your life, or do you always feel drained, frustrated, and resentful when you're with them? Now, I want to put a little warning in here, and this is an important one for you to listen to and just take note of. I want you to check in with yourself and make sure that you're not using the spring cleaning process as a way to avoid possibly a hard but necessary conversation or dynamic that might just be primed for personal growth. Now we're going to look at finances. And yes, you heard me correctly. Making sure that as you're moving into the new year with tax season behind you, hopefully, you want to make sure that you apply the same 3 questions to your financial house. But I want to highlight a couple things when it comes to this. Number 1, when you feel into where you spend money and where you acquire your money, notice where it might feel a little bit sticky, heavy, unsettled, or unstable, possibly. Money is neutral and it can take on the energy of the transaction or the acquisition. So just take note of how receiving, saving, investing, or giving money feels. Is there any internal dialogue that is going on that is a red flag for you? If so, what is it? And can you shift your relationship in these areas so that it does feel more aligned? Then the second question applying to finances is it really needed? Are there areas where you are leaking money because of old habits or patterns or commitments that could be reevaluated? Is your financial focus in the right place? Are you moving from a saving framework and then shifting into more of an investing framework that requires you to pivot in different ways? And then applying the third question, is there anywhere that you're spending, saving, investing, or giving monetarily is not aligned with your values, goals, or service? Activating your courage by dusting off your core why. As the seasons change and we continue to learn and grow, it is important to not just focus on let it go process of spring cleaning, but you also want to attend and reevaluate or sometimes just reconnect with your core why. We need to know why we're going through all of this effort and hopefully have some sense of where we're going or becoming with the increased mental, physical, and emotional capacity that we are creating. This is what will actually give us the courage to make those hard and uncomfortable decisions of letting go. It will fortify that inner resilience and keep us moving forward. So, some questions to ask. Does your core why need to be updated? Does it need to be upgraded? Or does it need an entire top down remakeover? If so, it is equally as important to bring definition and clarity to your core why as it is to the practice to surrender and let go with spring cleaning. There are many different areas that can be added to this list, but this should give you a pretty good start. And I would love to hear if there's any areas in your life that are calling specifically for your attention more than other areas. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and share this on your social media with your questions and tag me in the post. I would love to see them and respond. Happy spring cleaning. Don't forget to get your copy of this free question strategy by going to the link you will find in the episode notes, or just head over to thereframe.net/numeral 3 question strategy to get your download. It is a handy printout to keep on the fridge or in your journal as you dive into this process of spring cleaning.